I'm going to lick your butt. And I was like, wait a minute. What do you mean? What do you mean? He's like, do your usual twirl, but just stop and I'm going to lick your butt. And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And it looked...
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fans View Podcast. Today, I am so excited to bring you an interview that, truth be told, guys, I never thought was going to happen. But it just goes to show, hey, shoot your shot. The worst they can do is say no. Today's guest is one of the rising stars in the Australian wrestling scene. Since debuting in 2023, she has quickly become one of the names that people are really keeping an eye on because of her charisma, her beauty, her power-based style, and just her growing presence in the independent scene. We're going to talk about discovering wrestling, training, balancing life and wrestling, working alongside fiancé Jessie Love, and where she sees this journey going. Please welcome to the Fans View Podcast for her very first podcast interview, Miss Jazzy Kennedy. Jazzy, how are you doing today?
Hello, I am so good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on as well. And yes, through perseverance, we have definitely gotten it happening.
I love it. You're too kind. Really, what that means, guys, is I was a complete and total pain in her ass that she couldn't ignore anymore. So she was like, okay, if it'll shut him up. But hey, I'll take that. So no shame here.
It's like, okay, I'll do a podcast, whatever.
Well, I'm so glad and I'm honored that you picked the Fans View to be your first one. So we're going to make sure to take care of you. You're going to go over at the end and everybody's going to go home happy.
Love it.
The first question I love to ask every guest, and it's especially for you, for people that are seeing you for the first time, maybe people here in the States that aren't as familiar, who is Jazzy Kennedy, both in the ring and outside of the ring?
Jazzy. Look, there's a few takes that you could look at for this, but I'll go into her character a little bit. I want you to think of like the most confident woman that you've ever seen in your life and like times that by 100. She's so confident. She goes out there. She knows that she's, charisma. She's sexy. She's flirty. She's a total bitch. But she knows that like she's the main character. And that's what I try to just embody when, I'm Jazzy. A lot of the time, most of the time, I'm ringside with my fiance Jessie, who you mentioned, doing cheeky little things here and there, making sure he always gets the win, as you do. You got to support your partner.
I love it.
But yeah, she's like support. She's ultimate support. It's like if you could picture having like the ultimate like fangirl, I reckon that's what Jazzy sort of is.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, we can go with that. There's so much to unpack there. I just don't even know where I want to start.
I know there's so much.
When you talk about Jazzy, how much of Jasmine is in there turned up to 11, and how much of that is kind of character that you've had to develop over the years?
Oh, I hate to admit it, but I reckon. Yeah, it's probably, I'd say it's about 80% me turned up about 20%. Because
Okay.
I've always been a confident chick.
I can't imagine why.
I just turned that up by 1,000,000.
I love it. I love that. Well, before you ever did step into a wrestling ring, when did you kind of fall in love with pro wrestling?
Actually, this is a great story. I didn't even know what wrestling was before I met Jessie. Never heard of it. Like in Australia, you don't hear about wrestling. People honestly don't know what it is, and if they do, they don't actually really know. They're like, "Oh, what is that? What do they do? Is that like that WWE thing?" You're like,
right.
Yeah. So I met Jessie. I met him online on like a dating app. We hit it off really, really well. And he was on his dating profile. He actually had photos of him doing wrestling, and he's in these tiny little Speedo trunks. I was like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? And he's like, I'm a, pro wrestler. And he tried to explain it to me, but I couldn't wrap my head around it. So I went to a show. And at this point, he was just wrestling at like this little small school gym hall, in front of this
Right.
small crowd and stuff. So I went in there, and then all of a sudden, they started wrestling. And I was like, oh my gosh, is he okay? What is going on right now? I was freaking out. And I remember I actually lost my voice that night because I was like screaming, like, oh my God, Jesse, oh my God, the whole entire time, freaking out.
Fantastic.
I remember Jesse said to me, he's like, this isn't an industry that I would ever, want you to get into. It's just, you don't have to get into that. It's fine. And I was like, cool. Like I had no interest in it.
Right.
Until I did.
You were
I
bit by
think
the bug.
Jesse wanted me to go out with him, just ringside. So I got into some cute heels, which with a wrestling ring is not a good idea, may I say.
Terrible idea.
Terrible idea. And I did myself up and I came out with him, and and I fell in love with it straight away. I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. This is great. And then I can't remember how, but we got somehow, I think because, there's not many female wrestlers in Australia, it's really easy to just get into it. So I'd probably done like 2 training sessions. They're like, you want to do a tag match? And I was like, okay.
Well, let's do it.
And then before you know it, like me and Jesse are doing tag matches. Eventually I'm doing like, small squashes, and then doing, a little bit more with like some bigger names. And I was like, I don't know how I actually ended up here. This wasn't the plan, but like through doing it, I've absolutely fallen in love with it. Wrestling it is just the best form of entertainment. People don't get it. It is so cool.
That is amazing. That might be the best origin story I've heard yet on this podcast. And just your passion for it, it's infectious. That's amazing. I guess it goes without saying, since you were freaking out at the match, Jesse didn't smarten you up before the show.
No, not really.
I love it. A true heel. God bless him. God bless him. Do you remember that moment? Obviously, you said once you got bit by that wrestling bug, it was all systems go. Do you remember that moment when you thought to yourself, you know what? I think I really want to do this.
It pretty much for me happened instantaneously. The moment I felt the crowd's reaction to me just being there. And it's like every little thing I did, like they reacted. They loved it. And I was like, okay. And like, even though I'm coming out with Jesse, who's stereotypically a heel all the time, everyone hates him. Me being out there with him made people like him.
Right.
We're like, okay. So I just fell in love because of the fans. Like the fans are so unbelievably amazing and like loyal and loving, and they're just so there for you. And that's what's done it. And that's what kept me like holding on like all the way through until now. It's just the fans.
I love that. What was the reaction from friends and family when you told them you were going into pro wrestling?
Oh.
Obviously, you're a beautiful girl. You could have done a billion other things, but here we are. What was their reaction?
I think they still to this day think wrestling is so weird. I remember they would come to watch shows when even just Jesse was on. They were kind of like, what is this? Like, what world have we stepped into?
Right.
When I was stepping into it, they were kind of like, oh, like, okay. And then they came and watched, some matches, and they thought they could see why I liked it. Like they could see I got a good reaction and, had that good sort of banter with the fans and stuff, but they still don't get it. They still, because they don't get wrestling, so they just still don't understand it.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue too into my next question. Wrestling looks glamorous from the outside to the fans, to the people that aren't involved in the business, but the training, especially when you first start out, it's brutal. What was the biggest shock to you when you first started out?
This is going to sound so random, but when you think about training, I was like, oh, this is going to be scary. We're going to be doing, really scary stuff. But when you start out wrestling training, you go in and you're learning fundamentals, and people don't realize actually how important these fundamentals are. You're doing rolls
Right.
constantly, rolling, rolling, rolling. You're doing small bumps. You're doing all this little stuff, and you think to yourself, okay, when am I going to work up to the big stuff? But people don't understand how bloody important that small stuff actually is. It is so important. And when you look at wrestlers wrestling, you can tell who, practices those fundamentals, who keeps up with all of that baseline training. So that was a really big shock to me. I remember I went into my first ever training, and I said to Jessie, we just rolled around. What's going on? I very quickly realized after going a few more times that it is quite grueling, actually.
Yeah.
I did not have the cardio health for wrestling. Oh my goodness, that stuff is insane. I don't know how people do it constantly. Like Jessie, for example, they'll make you go and you have to run. Like you're doing this training session and then they send you out and you got to run. Because obviously in the ring, your fitness is so important. If you're unfit, you're more likely to make a mistake. Go for a run, and you're running all the way up through these driveways, up to these gates. And I was like dying. And then Jessie's just, doing bloody laps. I'm like, oh.
And then go get in the ring. Once you're done gassing yourself out, then go get in the ring.
Yeah. And then it doesn't stop at the training, because once you're on shows, you need to keep up with that, health, and you need to try and make sure that you're looking the part in the ring, because you want to look like a wrestler. That means, you need to be going to the gym 6 times a week. You need to be eating, fairly healthy. You need to be doing all of this stuff. And it's like, now it's a life commitment. It's like if you were to commit to doing bodybuilding or something, you're you're committed to it. It's a lifestyle.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's so full on.
Perfectly said. It definitely is. It's a lifestyle. It's not a part-time thing at all. What do you feel like was the hardest thing for you to learn? Obviously, just being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, jumping into pro wrestling. What was kind of the hardest thing in the beginning for you to get a hold of?
Oh, everything. I think, no, literally. I think the easiest thing for me was character-based stuff. And you can probably see that now. I'm character-based. So everything I do, I'm just emphasizing my character. And, working with the crowd. But I think for me, coming into wrestling, understanding the dynamics of every little thing is so hard. Even just something, and I did this recently, something as simple as knowing how to work, the hard cam. So the camera at the back that films everything. I think Jessie, did a nut shot on a guy, and that hard cam, it missed it because I was standing up on the ring. You know what I mean? It's little things like that people don't realize that wrestlers are constantly thinking about. And then another one I think that I really struggled with is because I didn't know wrestling. I didn't know the names of absolutely any wrestling moves. If I was listening to them, talk about matches and they were saying, this move, I don't know what that is. There's so many times where I had to Google, what is this? What is it?
I love it. I love
it.
That plays perfectly into my next topic. You've been wrestling since 2023. Obviously, in the wrestling business, you're still just a baby. Has everything happened because you and Jessie both, as a tandem, have gotten over? You've quickly ascended the ranks, not just in Australia, but you're known. Obviously, here I am in the United States, and I know who you guys are,
which is so cool.
Yeah, has everything kind of happened faster than you could have ever expected?
Yeah, I think so. Jessie, for example, he's been wrestling for, I think it's been over 10 years now. He's been wrestling for a long time. And, nothing too much was happening. And then all of a sudden, over the past 3 years, everything has just started happening all at once. And I think it's because now that me and him are, together and we're a duo, no one really has that in Australia. No one has sort of what we've got, like obviously the character work that we've got together, where, you know, he's coming off as, you know, this ladies man kind of pimp sort of character, and then, you know, you've got, you know, the typical blonde ditzy girl on his hip. No one else is doing that, and I think it really makes us stand out because I feel like we look the part. And I think that's the biggest difference is with, you know, obviously he's had me come into play with him, which has really, really helped.
Right.
But also him himself, he's just dedicated himself so much. You know, he's in the gym constantly. He's constantly, you know, trying to figure out what he can do to improve as a wrestler. You know, if he does a match, he'll go and he'll look back on that as soon as the footage is out. He's like, okay, I don't like this. I don't like this. I need to fix this. And like he will fix it. And I think by
Right.
doing that, it's made such a difference. And you know, before he wasn't flying even just interstate in Australia. Like he was just restricted to just Queensland wrestling. But now he's, you know, even going down to Melbourne, which is like, you know, hotspot of wrestling. Everyone wants to
Right.
get in there. Um, and yeah, it's all just kind of come out of nowhere, I think, a little bit. Like it was nothing, and now everything is just happening. Like there's so much stuff just happening.
That's
And it's so
amazing.
cool.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's fantastic. Like I see what you guys are doing on Instagram alone, and I'm so impressed by it. I mean, the sky is the limit for you guys as a duo. You definitely have going for you that there is not a lot out there like you guys. For hands down, that's not even a question. Um, Obviously, to kind of piggyback off of you starting, you know, just a couple years ago, at what point do you feel like you stopped playing wrestler maybe and became a wrestler? Like when did you start to feel like I belong here? I'm adding to Jesse's character. I'm not just the pretty blonde that's on his side. Like I deserve to be here. When did that kind of click for you?
I would say that for me has probably been the last, I'd say, 2 years. I felt that more.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, you know, I really struggled to fit into the pro wrestling scene because obviously, unlike other people, you know, there, I didn't have a background in wrestling. I
Right.
couldn't get into like the conversations that they were having, you know, about, oh, do you remember this match from, you know, this blah, blah, blah. I had no idea what they were talking about. And it took a really, really long time for me. Even just, you know, going to shows and feeling like fitting in the locker room and stuff. I always sort of felt like I was a little bit of an outsider. Just because, and even to this day, I'm just different to the other wrestlers that are in the room. But you know, when I think about that, I also think it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, because me and Jesse are pretty good. We don't get into like the politics of wrestling and all of that stuff. You know, we go to the shows, we do what we came to do, and then we kind of just get out of there. So it's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get into like the nitty gritty of wrestling too much. But yeah, I think once I started seeing how much the fans sort of reacted to me,
Mm-hmm.
and like how all of a sudden, you know, Jesse was actually getting the appreciation that he deserved as a wrestler. I was
Right.
like, okay, this is where I need to be because right now I'm helping get eyes on him, and that's exactly where the eyes sort of need to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's very well said. Um
Hey, you. Yeah, watching this right now. I see you. If you're enjoying what you're watching, I've got one quick favor to ask, and it only takes a second, costs you nothing, and makes a huge difference. If you could go ahead and hit that like button, maybe drop a comment. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed. Doesn't seem like much, but for small creators, it's everything. So let's help more people find this channel and keep the content coming. And honestly, I'm pretty sure the podcast will be really grateful. So if you're having fun, you like what you see, make it official, click those buttons. And the Fans View podcast, we'll see you next time.
um do you look back now? Do you look back at those matches from 2023, those entrances with Jesse, and just be like, Wow, I have come such a long way since then.
Oh, insanely. And it's insane because truly, like, I feel like we really have. Just sometimes I look back and I'm like, oh, what was that? Going out wrestling in front of, these tiny, tiny crowds, or even just trying to work these small crowds ringside, like doing all this stuff, not understanding anything about wrestling, all the dynamics, even the character work, which was kind of initially the only thing I could do. Um, yeah, it's amazing to see sort of how far we've come, and even in just like that short amount of time, it's amazing. And it just makes us so hungry. We're like, okay,
Yeah.
what's next? Where can we go next? How can we keep, pushing and pushing and get to a place where I feel like, you know, we should be.
Yeah, for sure. Hell yeah. I love that. That's definitely the right attitude to have. You talked about leading on your character work before, because maybe the wrestling was kind of following behind. What are you focusing on specifically, maybe right now? Like, what are you trying to improve on right now?
Right now I feel like my main focus itself actually hasn't so much been on wrestling or even being a wrestler. I've sort of shifted all of my focus into, being that, I guess I call it a valet, but people will say manager sort
Hmm.
of role for Jessie.
Right.
I feel like I've been a lot focusing on ways that I can make crowds, engage more in the match, just as a whole, and that sort of thing. That's like my main focus. I've sort of taken a little step back from the wrestling itself.
Hmm.
Um, and then yeah, because like honestly, I do love wrestling, and I love doing my spots in the matches, because Jesse always makes sure that I have my spots.
Right.
Um, but just working the character and working the crowd is just what I'm in love with. And so the more I can improve on that, I think the better off we are, sort of thing. So that's
Very
my
cool.
focus.
Okay, I
Just
like
going
that.
out there and standing there and, being like, hey, I'm Jazz.
Just being jazzy. Nothing
Just
wrong
being
with that.
jazzy. Yeah,
It's getting you somewhere so far. You might want to stick with that.
exactly.
Something's working. Um, Fans obviously, it's 2026, so you can't hide much from them. But fans know obviously that you and Jesse are engaged. What's it like sharing this crazy wrestling life together? Does it is it super helpful, I guess, to have someone that understands the business, the travel, the gym regimen, the eating, all of the stuff that goes into being a wrestler?
Yeah, I think so. Um, Honestly, to be able to have something to share with your partner it's just so lovely. You always hear, and it's always good for partners to like have, your separate hobbies and stuff. But a
Hmm.
lot of the time, they don't share a lot of interests outside of, their partnership or their marriage and that sort of thing. And
Right.
I think with me and Jesse, the fact that we get to actually, share the experience of wrestling, it just makes it so special. And I think it feeds into why we love it so much, because you've got someone who you're getting ready for. You can do each other's tans on the Friday night. Terrible,
Love it.
terrible. You traveling to shows together, you're helping each other improve. And after every match, he'll come to me, he'll be like, how was I out there? How was the match? Because I'm right there and I can see absolutely everything. And I think it's nice to have someone who can give you honest feedback, someone who is close enough to you to do that.
Right.
But it's so special, and it's so nice to have the support constantly.
I can only imagine it must be nice to have someone that understands the craziness, just as well as you do. We kind of touched on it, in the beginning. Australian wrestling has actually produced, a lot of stars in recent years. It started to open up and evolve. How healthy does the wrestling scene feel right now?
Honestly, since I started wrestling, and what that was 2023, you said, up
Mm,
until now, it has, I don't know what happened, but it's kind of boomed a bit. And I think, by having the bigger companies come down and visit Australia, that's obviously helped a lot. But I
right.
feel like we've gone from people here not knowing what wrestling is, like me, to actually having an understanding of what it is. It's really, really nice. It's come a long way, and the scene is, it's a wrestling scene, but I
Yeah.
feel like it's healthy. I feel like it's thriving. There seems to be more opportunities popping out like now than ever, and I don't know if that's just because social media is at an all-time high and everyone here actually has some sort of visibility now, but
Yeah.
I feel like it's growing, and I feel so privileged to be here now while it's growing. You know what I mean? Because I feel like later
Yeah.
on when it actually pops off a little bit, everyone's
You're
going
already
to
going to
want to
be
be
there
in
and
wrestling.
established. Yep, exactly. Exactly. You've been in there on the ground floor. You're a foot soldier. You've been beating the drum since day one. And I'll tell you what, for your first podcast, you are the segue queen, because that leads me, talking about other promotions coming to Australia. Obviously AEW was just in Australia a couple months ago for their
Mm.
Grand Slam event, and I saw that you and Jesse were actually lucky enough to be there, to be extra talent. What was that experience like, seeing, going from, like you said, the small venues, the independent venues, to a huge production, like AEW? What was that experience like for you?
It was it was so surreal. And I think it really reignited the passion in both of us because, we saw the production, we saw the wrestlers, we saw what they were doing, and we were up close. Where we were sitting was right where they were going to do their entrance. So like we were seeing them right before their matches, which was so surreal. Um, and it just, funny enough, standing next to the wrestlers, like, the big guys and stuff, it made me realize that they are the same as us. And
Mm,
it is so truly achievable. Like, I think when you're seeing people on the TV screens and stuff, you're thinking, these people are massive, they're
right.
crazy. But when you're with them, you're like, they're humans.
Yep.
Everyone's just a person, and so that was
Absolutely.
amazing because I was standing next to the female wrestlers and I was like double their size because I'm a tall chick. And I was
Right.
like, oh my gosh, everyone looks so big on the TV. No one's actually that big.
Love it. I love that. Who do you think, in your opinion, obviously, as this goes out to a mostly American audience, who do you think are some Australian wrestlers besides yourself and Jesse, obviously, that people should know in the States?
Mm. Um, oh, there is so many. There is
I
so
know I'm gonna
many.
get you in trouble with that one because you're gonna forget to mention somebody.
Um, I think two that are doing
I'm gonna
really,
get you
really
some
well
heat,
here
that's
in
for sure.
Australia. Oh, I think the feed's gone. Oh, there it is.
We're
Two
back.
that are doing really, really well here in Australia at the moment are the Dropouts. I know they went and did some stuff. One of them did some Ring of Honor. The other one was just on Australian Survivor. They're really getting some good traction at the moment. I think they're two that are probably worthwhile watching because I don't think they're far off probably from, probably getting signed at this point. And then I think more underrated ones, I would do female wrestlers at the moment in Australia. Um, there is a wrestler here in Queensland, and her name is Estina Cade, and
Hmm.
she is so underrated. I think that she's so amazing. I've just watched her progress. Since I started wrestling, sort of up until now, and the way that she's developed her character in wrestling herself is so amazing. Another good one here in Australia, I think, is Eugenie, if you've heard of her. Yeah, she's amazing. She's a powerhouse.
Hopefully, a
Male,
future podcast guest.
yes, a future
we're
podcast
we're
guest.
trying. We're trying.
And then I always think to myself, Mitch Ryder. absolutely amazing. And that's more so, I'm with, except for the dropouts, I think that's putting more of a highlight on people, I think, in, you know, Queensland wrestling, who are just
Right.
absolutely amazing. Because I think Queensland wrestling needs a little bit more recognition.
Hey, we're here. That's what we're here for. Obviously, we touched on the fact that, you know, wrestling isn't necessarily a 9-to-5 job. You live, sleep, eat, breathe wrestling. Thank God your partner in life also eats, sleeps, and breathes wrestling. What does a normal week look like for Jazzy Kennedy?
Oh, okay. So my normal week, I'm a registered nurse and I work in like drug and alcohol detox. So during the week, I'm at work, you know, helping people and that sort of thing. These people have no idea that I'm a wrestler. So it's kind of funny. I'm just like this professional nurse. Every afternoon, we are at the gym 6 times a week. Our meals, like on a Sunday, they're prepped, they're ready to go for the week, we're organized. Most of the time, we're working on Saturday mornings as well, just because we've got a wedding coming up, you know, extra money is always helpful. And then on a Saturday night, we are most of the time wrestling. So it's like we are just constantly go, 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 go. Like we have no time for absolutely anything.
I love it. I can appreciate it. I have a 4-year-old, so I know go, go, go. Trust me.
Yes.
It's not wrestling, but a 4-year-old little girl is. Yeah.
Hats off to you for that.
Pray for me. Just pray for me. I need the prayers, Jazzy. I need the prayers. You have been so much fun. I could sit here and talk to you for another hour. I have a million more questions. So you're going to have to come back. You're going to have to do a part 2.
Yes, we'll have to.
When your schedule allows it. But I do have my 2 favorite questions that I love to ask everyone. The first of which being, obviously, this is the Fans View podcast. It was started by a fan, you know, because I'm no different than any of those guys that, you know, watch you guys. What are you a fan of outside of pro wrestling?
What am I? This one might be a little bit of a surprise to people because, you know, I seem like I'm this girly girl and stuff. Totally not. I'm a sucker for a good game. I love gaming.
Okay.
So in my spare time, like when I get it, usually late at night, I'll be on, you know, God of War and all that those sort of games, doing that sort of thing. So that one usually surprises people. And then, you know, besides that, honestly, just spending time with Jesse. That's my bread and butter. That's what I'm a fan of.
I love that.
Yeah.
I am a fan of him as well. So it works out. Last but not least, you know, while we're talking about Jesse, and we talked about you guys being out of the box and just being different than anything else in Australia. When I first was doing my research of you and Jesse, I noticed something that was very out of the box, and I was going to try to fit this in organically, but here we go. I'm just going to shoehorn the question is, whose idea was the entrance? And I think we all know what I'm talking about when I say the entrance. For those that don't know, well, I'll let you tell them. Who came up with the entrance?
It depends which entrance you're talking about.
The licking of the butt cheek one.
Yes. So that's our non-PG entrance. So
I got to hear the story behind that one.
Okay. If we are ever at a venue that's 18 plus, obviously our characters, they lean into sexuality like a little bit more. So we can be a little bit more promiscuous. And I remember we were doing a show at Wrestle Rock, which is an 18 plus venue. You know, they've got a rock band going on. Everyone's drinking at the bar. It is so cool. Right. And Jesse, we were getting ready to do entrance. And Jesse's like, I'm going to lick your butt. And I was like, wait a minute. What do you mean? What do you mean? He's like, do your usual twirl, but just stop. And I'm going to lick your butt. And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And it looks so cool on the videos. I still think it's cool.
Badass.
I wish we could do it for every single show.
Right.
Sadly, we cannot though, because it is not PG or family friendly.
Little Johnny
But
in the second row might have some questions after that entrance.
honestly, any cool idea that you see in our wrestling and stuff, it's Jesse. He just has the most creative mind I've ever seen. He comes up with insane stuff, even just in putting together matches. Like,
Yeah.
He's so creative.
I saw that and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to respectfully ask that question, but there it is. I know I'm not the only one that was thinking it. So, intrusive thoughts, you know how it goes.
Yes.
So shout out to Jesse for that one. Well played. My last question, completely aside from butt licking and the like, at this stage of your career, obviously you're a young woman, you're very talented, you're very young in the business. How do you define success, not only at this stage of your career, but of life in general?
Yeah, and it's a really good question. And we could go so many ways with this question. I'm just going to go with the first thing that I sort of think of. But I feel like success isn't about, the destination. I feel like it's about how you feel throughout the journey. I think so long as you're happy in your life, that is success, because you only get to live once, and if you're trying to reach a destination or you're trying to achieve something and you're not enjoying it and you're not happy, I don't think it's success, because you're going to reach that destination and you might think that you're happy when you get there. You might not be, though. So just success to me is happiness in life. It's doing those, things that fill your cup and make you feel good as a person.
Absolutely. Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. Jazzy, again, thank you so much for making the time. This has been absolutely wonderful. For your first podcast, you are a pro. Let the people know where they can find you on social media. For those in the States, obviously, that's their only method of seeing you right now. Maybe we'll change that in the future. Do you have any merch or anything like that?
I need to get some more merch made up. We've been a little bit slack with the merch. You can get Jazzy and Jessie tops. They're in my Instagram bio under the shop section. But besides that, you can find me on Instagram at Jazzy_Kennedy. It's the same handle for YouTube as well. I try to keep things uniform and keep the same handle.
Love that.
And then besides that, you can find me on TikTok at the Jazzy Kennedy Show.
I love it. Well, guys, make sure to go give Jazzy a follow. Go give her, easy for me to say, her fiance, Jesse Love, a follow as well. Incredibly talented. Go show them some love. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Go buy some merch. Maybe we can get something popping over here in the U.S. and get some merch over here. We're going to figure it out when we get off this call. But guys, above all else, go support Jazzy. She deserves it. She's going to be a star. You're going to want to say you bought some merch from her. You supported her since day one when she pops off. So go make sure to support her on socials. Go follow the YouTube. Follow our YouTube. Follow our socials. And most importantly, guys, at the end of the day, make sure you call your mom.
If you haven't liked or subscribed, you're going to be joking me.